Now before we get into the video, I do want to say a massive thank you to today's video sponsors, and once again that is jerseyfifa.com. They really do help keep the content on this channel going, and they even sent me a free shirt which you can see on screen here. And as you can see, I got the new Manchester United home kit, and genuinely the kit really is top quality. I highly recommend their product. So make sure to get in a link in the description down below, and now if you use code JerseyFifa at checkout, you'll get 10% off your order. You get a great football shirt, and you help support the channel, which I really do appreciate massively. Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel. I hope you're all well and good, but realistically you're probably not, because if you're watching this video you are probably a Manchester United fan. Now I am as well. I've got the shirt on today from Jersey FIFA to show that we're in this together, because I am also bitterly disappointed with what we saw in the match against Brighton yesterday. And I think you can probably tell that by the fact that this is a two-part video. I've never done that on the channel before for one specific match, but we are doing it for this one. Part 1 was out yesterday, maybe the day before, and we looked at what went wrong in possession. And kind of the main takeaway was that the shape wasn't too bad, but the issue was more on the individuals. Maguire was decent on the ball, but a bit slow. De Gea was sloppy in possession. Fred was sloppy in possession. McTominay was awful, like genuinely horrendous. And then the wingers didn't really do too much. Fernandes didn't do too much. Eriksen was the bright spark. But today I want to look at things from more of a defensive point of view, because I think here there was a system issue in terms of the shape and a Ten Hag problem, and also there was an individual player issue once again. And you can probably guess what part of the pitch I'm going to be targeting again in this video. So let's just get started. So as I was saying in that little intro there, a lot of the issue was a structural issue as well as individuals. However, first I want to take a look at the Brighton shape, because they deserve a lot of credit. And we can see they were in almost a back three here, and then a bit of a diamond in midfield, and then a front three again. Now, we thought Trossard and March were going to be wing-backs, which technically they were in the shape, but they played almost as wingers. Now, and also actually just tried to follow the mouse as much as possible, but they were very much wingers, and this caused issues for United. Now, as we'd expect, Brighton wanted to try and play the ball out from the back. It's what Brighton do, it's what Graham Potter does. And United's initial pressing shape was alright. We can see the back three here. Eriksen went on to Dunk, Rashford came in towards Veltman, Sancho on Webster, and then Fernandes on McAllister. And as a result, Brighton didn't really have an easy passing option out from the back, and that's a good thing because Sanchez is good on the ball. So by preventing that, that was certainly a good start from United, and the press was okay, and this was something that we saw in the first 15 minutes or so of the match. Now, as a result of this, Sanchez kind of went, screw it then, I'm not going to try and play the way out from the back, I'm going to send the ball long. And this caused way too many issues for United. One long ball should not cause as many issues as it did. Now I think before the season started we were perhaps a little bit worried about this with Lisandro Martinez and his height. However, that wasn't even really the issue. Welbeck just had a very good game up front. So Sanchez would send the ball long. Welbeck was now here, and a lot of the time in this situation you say the striker has to make the ball stick to then bring others into the game. United were that bad, the ball didn't have to stick. The touch could be horrible, the touch could go 2 yards away from him. Brighton was still first to that ball. Every time Welbeck, sometimes he controlled it, sometimes he lost it, but either way, Lallana was nearly always on this second ball. Fred should have been there, McTominay should have been in here trying to win the ball back, but it just didn't happen. Brighton didn't have an awful lot of the ball in this game. United did dominate, and that's why the possession video was longer than this one. However, they didn't need to have a lot of the ball because they could just get on the second ball constantly, and that alone was enough to give them attacking opportunities. Now, it's not helped by the fact that we can see that Brighton did have numerical superiority in this area. We can see the 4v3. So that's perhaps where, from a structural point of view, there might be a slight concern. However, either way, that's a massive issue. That even when being outnumbered, you should just be able to challenge a second ball, and they simply couldn't. This meant that Lallana was able to get on the ball in these areas, and now with Dalot and Shaw both playing slightly inverted in possession and in the press, it now meant that once the ball went long from Sanchez to Welbeck, got laid off to Lallana, we can now see these gaps in this area here and in this area here. And this is where United were destroyed. In the first half especially, they were absolutely torn apart with balls in this little area here, in between Dalot and Harry Maguire. Maguire is not a good 1v1 nimble defender. It happened a little bit down the other side. However, Lisandro is much better at defending in these wider areas. But I think Brighton knew that Harry Maguire coming down this side of the pitch and defending in this channel, it's a recipe for disaster from a Manchester United point of view. Now, that's not me trying to criticise Maguire, because we know that about him. We've seen the size of him. he's never going to be a player that is great in this way. So maybe that is a bit more aimed at Erik ten Hag and the system. We need to see more protection from Dalot for Maguire, because it did very much feel like Brighton were targeting down this side of the pitch. And in general, the width from Brighton was just an issue. Trossard and March down the two sides were incredible. And then because Brighton had this overload in the centre, it meant that they could afford to pull players out wide. So occasionally, let's say Dalot is back in position and McTominay's across, or McTominay's in the middle and even Sancho's back here, Brighton was still able to outnumber them. Because we can see McTominay playing central here. Welbeck would come across onto Maguire. Lallana would come across. Trossard was here. And then Caicedo as well. And again, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 players here against 3 Manchester United players. And the big difference, I was talking yesterday about United being slow on the ball, McTominay taking too many touches. The big difference was that Brighton didn't do that. We can see here, Caicedo, Trossard, Welbeck, Lallana, it was quick passing interchanges. It was 1 and 2 touch football. And that is what United couldn't do. They didn't do it at any point in the game, really. And that was the big difference. It happened on the other side as well. Welbeck would come over here. Grob would get forward. As we know, he scored the goals. And again, it was just constantly outnumbering these Manchester United players all game long, especially in these wider areas. And actually, especially in the first half. In the second half, Brighton did begin to sit back a little bit because they had the lead, obviously. They didn't need to go forward. But during the first half, they just kept creating these overloads out wide, getting between the fullback and the centre-back. And centre-backs don't want to defend these areas. Now, as I said earlier, Lisandro Martinez is pretty good in these areas. However, it was his first game in the league, so it wasn't an ideal situation for him. But Maguire on this side, time after time after time, Trossard was getting into these positions. And Danny Welbeck absolutely destroyed Manchester United. Now, how many years ago did he leave Manchester United? Yeah, he was the best forward player on the pitch. Perhaps that's an issue with the Manchester United recruitment a little bit. Maybe it says something. But either way, Welbeck peeling particularly into this left channel here, with Trossard also getting forward, Caicedo backing him up, Lallana coming in here. It just completely destroyed this Manchester United defence. They didn't have an answer to it. And actually, we'll look in a few minutes at the goals. And what we'll see, we'll break down both goals. And we'll see that they both kind of came down this side. Not quite in the same sort of way, but it was very much exposing this gap here. Now, that's going to be an issue potentially all season long unless something changes. Because we know that on the ball, United want to play in this sort of shape. Like a 2-3 shape here with the fullbacks quite narrow. However, if teams are going to counter, that gap is always going to be there. Let's just give me a second to put these players back in position. If United are going to play this shape, but they're going to lose the ball in these areas because Fred isn't good enough on the ball or McTominay isn't good enough on the ball, then this gap here, either side of Maguire and Martinez, is going to be there all season, particularly against wing-back systems, which I think we're seeing more of than ever in the Premier League before, The likes of Spurs are playing it as well, Brighton, Southampton, a lot of teams are trying this back three. And I think this inverted wing-back system is going to get exposed in these areas unless we see some sort of change. Now, we saw something similar when Pep Guardiola first came into the Premier League. He had a hot streak at the start, but then there were certain issues from a tactical point of view with his system. Eventually, he kind of ironed out those issues and they became much more solid. Erik ten Hag is probably going to go through a similar process. I was talking earlier in the summer that there are going to be problems early on, and this is one of them. And it really showed in the goals. Let's get a picture of the goals up here. So here's the first goal. We can see Trossard out on the left wing. This is the wing back bombing forward at left wing. Dalot is going to get drawn out to him here, which he has to do so. He's the fullback, he's got to do it. And McTominay is following Caicedo. Now what we'll see as this move develops is that Caicedo doesn't really make the run forward. He sits here instead. And McTominay doesn't do his job basically. And Dalot doesn't do great either. So we can see here it moves forward. Trossard brings the ball forward. Caicedo has stayed back. He's not interested in getting forward. McTominay now has two choices. He can perhaps track this run in behind, track this area here to help the centre backs, or he can cut off this passing lane here. Now, I think what he opted for was to cut this passing lane. However, on this software, I can't draw the line across, but if we could, we can see that he hasn't cut that passing lane out. The way that his feet are stanced, he can't flick a leg out to intercept this pass. So the job he's trying to do is, one, it's the wrong job, but two, he hasn't done it anyway. Dalot has got his body positioning pretty poor. Maguire has stepped to play the offside trap, and Danny Welbeck has made a brilliantly timed run in behind the defence. The ball comes through. Maguire is now out of position because he stepped. McTominay is nowhere to be seen. Dalot is out of the equation. and Lisandro Martinez is desperately trying to make up the ground, trying to cover for his other 3 players that have made a mistake. That doesn't really work. Danny Welbeck puts the ball across. De Gea does this sort of weird thing. I'd be interested to hear some goalkeeper analysis on his performance. I thought he was a bit shaky at times. Shaw is now dragged in here onto this man here. You can't quite see him, but Shaw hasn't done too bad here. He's just been overloaded. Brighton created the overload well, and it's a tap in for Grob at the back post. Now, second goal is maybe even worse. United press well and get Brighton in the corner. One cheeky back heel though, and it's all undone, and then physically United get dominated. The ball then ends up here, and Fred was starting here, and he makes this decision to come and press the ball. And that was fatal, because it leaves these 2 players free to receive the pass. The pass goes through, as we'll see here. Fred is now out of the game. We've got Eriksen out of the game here. We've got McTominay out of the game here. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 Brighton players attacking a United back 3. A 4v3 is bad in any situation. But when you've got Maguire, who we know is slow, lethargic in these sorts of scenarios, Lisandro Martinez, who is new to a league and adjusting, and Shaw, who just had a bang average game, it's a recipe for disaster. As the move plays on, it gets even worse. The ball gets played to Lallana, who kind of carries the ball across inside, and initially Maguire does a good job. He shepherds the ball one way and forces Lallana to go across. So initially, he done well. However, after that, he has to come in here. I don't know what he's thinking. He kind of continues to follow Lallana. He has to slot back into this role here at right centre-back, so Lisandro can go across to the left. Now, as we'll see as it plays out, that doesn't happen. The ball goes wide. Shaw does not get close enough to his man. Maguire is now telling Lisandro to come over here, and genuinely for a split second you could see the confusion on Martinez's face as he was being told to do this. So we're now got a centre-back who is not even close to be in the box, and one who is now defending, doing 2 jobs. And if we just go back this picture again, sorry, that's criminal. In no situation should the ball be on the edge of your box and your centre-backs are in a vertical line like this. It's staggered maybe, horizontal yes. This is just awful. The ball gets played wide, Maguire's not in position, Shaw doesn't get close enough to his man, eventually the low shot cross comes in here, and now the centre-backs, because of adjusting position, they're now defending on the back foot. They're now playing reactive football rather than proactive football. And when you do that against a good team like Brighton, a well-drilled team, they're going to get things from it. The shot comes in, De Gea parries it poorly in my opinion. I don't think he should parry it. And then Fred, if you go back a picture, this whole time, he's got one job. It's Grob on this back post. Shot comes in, Fred doesn't react, Grob does, and he has a tap in. Brighton go 2-0 up, and that was the story of the first half in particular. Now, in the second half, Brighton sat off a bit, like I said. They didn't really need the goal, but it's because they'd done the damage in the first half. They were absolutely brilliant going forward, but for Manchester United, a lot of concerns. And actually, I've just seen the timer. I've actually gone way over the time that I planned for this video, and there's genuinely more I could talk about. Hopefully I don't have to as the season goes on, because hopefully these flaws are ironed out. However, right now, there is a lot of problems individually and structurally for this Manchester United team. I think, firstly, Ten Hag needs to perhaps tweak the system from a defensive point of view. I think we need to give the centre-back pairing time to get used to each other's game and develop an understanding, which is completely reasonable. But then also, Erik Ten Hag has to be backed in the transfer window. Fred and McTominay were both ineffective on the ball and out of possession. United need new players here. And I know we all want Frenkie de Jong. Frenkie de Jong will come in and play this Fred role. That doesn't solve the defensive issue. The issue that the midfield was far, far too open. If we go back to that other picture from this goal here, look how open the midfield is. Frenkie de Jong doesn't solve that issue. There are so many issues in this midfield, It has to be addressed. If it's not, United are in for a long, hard season. Either way, I do think we'll see improvement. However, this was a very, very disappointing game. I'm sorry you guys had to go through it, and I've now put it through you again in 2 videos, so apologies for that. But thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate all your support on the channel recently. Literally about 10 minutes ago, we just hit 8,000 subscribers, which is incredible. So I really do appreciate you guys. Make sure to check out Jersey FIFA in the description down below. That also helps me. Thank you guys. That was not English. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.